Hey everyone, my name's Jessie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my first unhaul of 2021 to make some room for some new, hopefully favorite books this coming year. These are all books that either just didn't work for me personally, or I don't see myself ever rereading. If you don't already know, when I do unhaul books, I always try to take them to a local used bookstore who is so kind enough to give a store credit in exchange for used books that I can then use to maybe look for some new books. And then whatever they don't take, I either donate to my local library or to my local Goodwill. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about these books that I am unhauling. First book, if you saw my December wrap-up, should come as no surprise, and that is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Yep, this one just was not for me. I'm shocked because I am definitely in the minority. Everyone loves this series, the Murderbot series of novellas and now full-length novels. I thought I would love it. Shocked to say that I did not. Yeah, it just didn't work for me. I'm really bummed. But if you have been wanting to try it out, please still pick it up because so many people love it. It's about this murderous robot who doesn't want to murder people. They would rather just sit on the couch and watch their favorite soap opera. The humor didn't work for me. The character of Murderbot didn't work for me. The plot didn't work for me. So I'm not going to continue on with the series. And I'm going to say goodbye to Murderbot and hopefully put Murderbot in hands that will love them. The next books that I am unhauling, and I don't know what it is with me and novellas. Maybe I just don't appreciate novellas as much as other people do, but I'm also unhauling the first 3 books in the Wayward Children's series. Shocked again that these did not work for me. So I read the first one last year, followed by the second and third, and thought the first one was okay. I found the tone very confusing and all over the place, and I just wasn't a huge fan of any of the characters, but I really liked the premise and the world building in it, so I was like, all right, let me continue on. The second one I did enjoy much more, and then the third one lost me again. And after the third one, I was like, you know, these just aren't going to ever be like 5-star favorites, so I don't want to keep buying more of them and continue to find them potentially average, so I'm not going to be continuing on with this series, but I know it is so beloved, again, by so many people. I'm definitely in the minority on this one, so hopefully these find a better home. The next book I have to unhaul is, I'm finally doing it, I'm finally unhauling it despite its beautiful cover, and that is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. I love this cover so much, and it's why I've held on to it for so long, but I looked at it and thought to myself, is it really worth holding on to it just for its beautiful cover? This is a Mulan Project Runway inspired young adult fantasy book that is set in an Asian inspired world that had such promise. I loved the beginning of this book. Part 1 was so intriguing, so fast-paced. I really liked the character work. And then we got to part 2 and it became this like journey story, and it focused very heavily on a romance between 2 characters. I just unfortunately really didn't buy, so it lost me once it got to that halfway point. I just didn't care anymore. I found it very average. I'm very bummed, but again, I think that this is one that a lot of people really like, so this beautiful hardcover will hopefully be a hidden gem for someone at this used bookstore, and they will pick it up and adore it. The next 2 books I have are from the Collector series, which is an adult thriller series written by Dot Hutchison, and it is actually the 2nd and the 4th book in that series. So this is a very dark thriller series that focuses on the same set of FBI agents throughout the entire series, but follows different cases in each book. So you can kind of read each book as a standalone pretty easily. The only thing that you would maybe miss is a couple of character development moments that happen throughout this series that I personally didn't find to be the focus or what I was really reading them for. So the second and the fourth book in that series were definitely my least favorite. I don't remember much at all about the second one, Roses of May, but I just remember thinking it was like so average, so predictable. I really didn't like it. And then the fourth one, I remember a little bit more because I just read it last year, and unfortunately it focused less on the crime that was trying to be solved and focused much more on our main character's kind of relationship drama, which sounds very weird and is why I did not connect to this fourth one at all, really, because I just didn't care too much about the characters' like backstories. I just really liked these books for the crimes that they were trying to solve. The first and the third book in the series are much better. It starts off with The Butterfly Garden, which is definitely my favorite in that series. So if you're looking for a really dark, it is very disturbing and very graphic, but it's so well done and the characters are so good in that book. If you're looking for a really dark thriller that gets pretty heavy. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is so well written and so good, then I highly recommend The Butterfly Garden, but you don't necessarily have to continue on with the series. So I will be unhauling these two books, but keeping the first and third one. Next book I have to unhaul is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I read this last year and I liked it well enough. I just didn't love it, and it's not one that I'm ever going to reread or come back to. And this one follows a woman who is going to visit her cousin who is recently married to this slightly sketchy man who lives in a kind of like a haunted house. It's kind of like a haunted house horror story, and a lot of people love it for the creepy atmosphere and the themes, and the writing itself I thought was really good, really beautiful. This is very much like a body horror type of scare, so if that's not something that scares you, that's something that's good to know about this book. I personally don't find that type of stuff scary, and I found it really gross, to be honest. I also really enjoyed the kind of the twist at the end and some of the ideas it was playing on. I didn't love some of the plot conveniences in this one, so I just had mixed feelings on it. I know I'm not going to reread it. I figured I would unhaul this one and give someone else a chance to read it. The next book I have is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I read this one last year for the Shelf Space Book Club, and it was my first N.K. Jemisin. I have since also read the 5th season, which I liked more than The City We Became. So The City We Became is about New York City and how the city is under attack from this mysterious force of a villain that is actually from a different dimension. And when the city goes under attack, the city awakens these avatars that are essentially people who encapsulate the 5 different boroughs of New York City. Such a cool idea. Unfortunately, this one, again, just didn't quite work for me personally because the writing style, while I can see why so many people would love it, I found it so confusing. I think N.K. Jemisin has a very unique, very distinct writing style that you can either like love or find a little confusing. And there were just some plot conveniences in this book, like how the characters knew to be somewhere was they kind of just felt like they had to be there, and those sorts of things were very convenient in the plot. And we had all of this build up this whole time in the book to this big ending, and then it almost like cuts the ending short, like it cuts the big battle at the end short, and we like don't really get to see the big battle. So it was a very like anticlimactic ending. So I think that this is a wonderful book if you are in love with New York City or just love like that city lifestyle. I think you would get a lot out of this. And if you like N.K. Jemisin and her writing style, then I would obviously highly recommend this one. But unfortunately, it didn't work for me personally. Yeah, I was really bummed because it sounded so cool. It had such a cool concept. The next one I have is another Shelf Space Book Club pick from last year, and that is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. So I just talked about this in my December wrap-up, so I won't go too much into it. This is a flintlock fantasy. It follows these people who are powder mages and have the ability to snort gunpowder and get abilities when they do this. It's a really cool concept. Unfortunately, the execution of all of these cool ideas just didn't work for me. I didn't care about the plot or the characters really much at all. I found the world building very like surface level, and I felt that every time Brian McClellan would raise the stakes in the story, they would immediately get resolved like within the next chapter. I don't know. It didn't work for me. A lot of people really liked it though, so if flintlock fantasy is your thing, then I would highly recommend checking this out. But I unfortunately just won't be continuing on. The next book I have to talk about is another one that I just read in December, Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. I just talked about this one as well. I will link my December wrap-up if you want to see more in-depth thoughts on these. This is a young adult horror thriller book. It is very dark in tone, very gritty. I really liked the beginning. Unfortunately, the plot and where it goes and where it takes our characters is so over the top, so melodramatic. I just could not get into it or buy anything that was happening by the end of this book. I just really didn't care. Just, yeah, middle of the road. So, yeah, won't be rereading this one. All right, the last series I have to talk about that I will be unhauling is a big one, and it took a lot for me to decide to unhaul this because it's such a big series. It's so popular. Oh my goodness, everyone seems to love it, and it is The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. I have the full set in paperback. I love these editions, but I read these a couple years ago because just they were so hyped, right? They're so popular. It's like a must read if you love young adult fantasy. I didn't love them. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't love them. I found some books definitely better than others. I actually think the first book is the weakest in the series. This is something I would still highly recommend to a lot of people who love paranormal fantasy. It's just, you know, not being in the target audience age range. I think I was a little too old when I first read these, and if I had read them when I was a lot younger, I would have loved them. But this is a series that I'm not going to ever reread, ever. I don't see myself rereading it. I look back on it fondly. I'm glad I read it for sure. I am keeping The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. I really liked that trilogy a lot more than The Mortal Instruments. But I don't feel the need to keep around The Mortal Instruments any longer. It takes up a lot of space on my shelves that I need to make room for more books on my shelves. So hopefully these will find a very, very loving home of someone who has been wanting desperately to get into The Mortal Instruments. So I think this will be a good one for someone to find. So those are all of the books I am unhauling in the new year. What are some books that were on this list that maybe you've read before, loved, or didn't love? Did you see any that you have any opinions on? I would love to know, so leave those comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!